A warm welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najima Luima, but first are the headlines. Chiruhura district invaded by tsetse flies. Residents call for government support. Air pollution at its highest in Kampala, says report. Shosha, the village, using human urine solution as organic fertilizer. Lutalo names provisional squad for Africa Women Cup of Nations. Welcome once again, now the news in detail. The farmers in Chiruhura district have borne the burden of fighting tsetse flies, whose cost they said was exorbitant and discouraging to commercial cattle farmers. We have more. Nyabu Shozi County Member of Parliament Wilson Kajwenje told Parliament that an estimated 100,000 herds of cattle have been affected by the diseases caused by the flies. Kajwenje said Chiruhura has registered notable financial loss resulting from the decline in milk and beef production. He said that it is estimated that the district has lost 26 billion shillings and 15 billion shillings from sales of milk and beef respectively. He prayed that the Ministry of Agriculture should urgently procure and distribute tsetse fly traps, saying they are easy to use and are environmentally friendly. He also appealed to the ministry to work with the Ministry of Trade, Tourism and Antiquities to carry out studies on tsetse fly control measures that would include development of an appropriate pesticide that kills tsetse flies. Speaker of Parliament Anita Among said that she received similar reports from residents during her recent visit to Chiruhura and asked the Agriculture Ministry to urgently assess the disease burden in the district. The Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, together with the National Planning Authority, has launched guidelines to regulate the establishment and the development of fuel stations across the country in a bid to resolve environmental and safety concerns. Nalugo reports.
According to the city planning regulations, fuel stations are supposed to be set up 100 meters from residential or public buildings. However, many of these are in the middle of residential and commercial buildings, which according to authorities is very hazardous. Speaking to journalists at the Government Media Center in Kampala, the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Judith Nabakoba, said the growing numbers of fuel stations, especially in the Kampala metropolitan, is increasingly worrying citizens due to the risks posed by these fueling stations.
These raise health, environmental and safety concerns and results into some form of spatial nuisance. Some of the fuel stations are located in congested commercial and residential areas, and to make matters worse, some have established a total disregard of existing laws and also land use framework.
For this reason, the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development has launched a set of guidelines to regulate the establishment and development of fuel stations. According to the guidelines, before one sets up a fuel station, they must acquire building permits from the local government, an environmental impact assessment report from NEMA, a petroleum construction facility from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, and failure to abide by the guidelines, a developer will be fined, imprisoned, or both.
We believe that we are good to go, because before we had only even put guidelines without punishment, but we were still guided that no, there is need for punishment, for people to take this matter seriously, because the entire country is concerned about the mushrooming fuel stations in the country, which needed to be guided.
The guidelines, however, come at a time where hundreds of fuel stations are already established in places where they are not supposed to be. However, Lands Minister says these developers will be engaged for a solution.
The Fiscal Planning Board is going to sit with the developers and see how best can their situation be handled. It might be very difficult for us to reverse some of the operational fuel stations, but what I can assure you, new developers have to follow the regulations in place.
According to the newly launched regulations, a fuel station shall not be located less than 100 meters from a commercial, residential facility, a school, hospital, or any other form of human settlement. Fuel stations should be at least 200 meters apart from each other, and a fuel station shall not be constructed at a road junction, roundabout, intersection, or expressway, among others.
The quality of air in Kampala has hit its worst after exceeding the World Health Organization permissible levels, according to data collected in and around Kampala. Data showed that air pollution levels are at the highest, especially in Kampala during the peak hours of the morning and evening when traffic is too much on the road. Ndagire has more.
According to Dr. Daniel Okello, KCCA's Director of Public Health and Environment, air pollution levels recorded in the city were higher than the World Health Organization recommended levels by 5 to 7 times across all divisions, with Kawempe recording the highest concentration at 57 microgram per cubic meter. Dr. Okello said that from January to March 2022, data from the Kampala City Air Quality Monitoring System showed that the average particulate matter 2.5 levels were significantly higher than the WHO recommended levels across all divisions, including Central, Kawempe, Nakawa, Machindye, and Lubaga. Kawempe division recorded the highest levels of air pollution at 57.7 microgram per cubic meter during this observation period. He noted that the KCCA installed 100 air quality monitors in 25 locations across the city, adding that it is data from the monitors that the report was made. According to Professor Inginiabaino Mugisha, the leader of the AirQO, a Makerere University project aimed at collecting, analyzing, and forecasting air quality data in Uganda, Kampala's Air Quality Index, data from the air monitoring systems shows that in the last 7 months, pollution increased to its peak in January 2022 across the country. The KCCA Director for Public Health and Environment said that health conditions whose risk can be increased by air pollution include cardiovascular diseases, stroke, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, and respiratory infections, especially among children.
Let's go for a quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. Farming remains one of the main activities of the local population in Sasha, a village located in the Masisi territory, about 30 kilometers southwest of the city of Goma, capital of North Kivu, in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. But in many fields, the land is becoming less and less arable. Now, field workers have resorted to buying human urine from neighbors, which they use as organic fertilizers. Let's take a look.
The situation in Shasha, a village located in the Masisi territory, has led to a decline in local production, which can no longer cover local food needs, whereas in the past, the village used to supply large cities such as Goma with basic necessities. To overcome this problem, many field owners resort to buying human urine from neighbors or other inhabitants of the village, which they then use as organic fertilizer. Paul Kanyama is a farmer and one of the initiators of this human urine solution in Shasha. He said that they start by placing plant bands in their fields that they then spray with human urine, which after a month's conservation has the capacity to kill any insect that may attack the plant. He added that afterwards, they put their seeds in their fields before a second spraying in a method that works perfectly well. While for the farmers, this practice increases the productivity of their fields, for the young people of Shasha, it is a way to make some money by selling a 20-liter can of urine for 12,000 Congolese francs or $6 American. Following a strong demand from farmers who, due to lack of access to organic fertilizer, resort to this alternative, this human urine is becoming scarce and its price is likely to rise in the coming days. The DRC's agriculture sector employs over 60% of Congolese labor and comprises 19.7% of gross domestic product according to the International Trade Administration.
Moving on, UN Chief Antonio Guterres on Tuesday visited a displaced people's camp in Niger, where he appealed for humanitarian and military aid for an impoverished country battling jihadist insurgents. Guterres traveled to the camp at Owalam in the southwest of the country on the fourth day of a trip to West Africa delayed by the crisis in Ukraine. He met with several dozen displaced people and refugees from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso in a school courtyard at the camp. He said he had chosen to end his two-day visit to Niger with the martyred population of Owalam, a town in the Tillaberi border region which has been badly hit by jihadists. He also appealed for help for the Nigerian people and refugees, providing resources that open the way for schools for everyone and hospitals which work. Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali are struggling with the jihadist insurgency that erupted in northern Mali in 2012 and spread to its neighbors 3 years later. Thousands of people have died and more than 2 million have fled their homes in 3 countries that rank among the poorest in the world. In the case of Niger, the country is facing a dual security crisis. Guterres began his African tour on Saturday in the Senegalese capital of Dakar. He winds it up today with a visit to Nigeria. Away from that, after 53 years of operation, the iconic Hilton Hotel, nestled in the heart of Nairobi's central business district, will close down indefinitely. At the end of this year, its disappearance could leave behind a great number of workers and disrupt the luxury sector.
Hilton Hotels, which has 40.57% shares owned by the government, is however not entirely quitting Kenya but will continue to operate its other brands in the country. Other than the cash flow challenges, Stephen Minimo adds that operating big hotels within the CBD is proving to be challenging. The brand supervisor of Asamara Restaurants in Nairobi explained that if they take a look at how Nairobi CBD was and how the CBD is right now, one can honestly say that it is not so favorable for big hotels to be in the central business district. Nevertheless, the hospitality industry was in fact hit hard by COVID-19 rules, and to stay afloat, hotels and restaurants adopted new strategies just like that company did. The hospitality and tourism industry is still volatile given the low number of tourists visiting the country and the burden of the current economic challenges on the potential local clients. The closure of this hotel 2 years after the closure of iconic Intercontinental Hotel paints a grim picture on the current situation of the hospitality industry in Kenya.
Tunisian specialists are sending an alarm on the damaging effects of the reduction of Posidonia in the Mediterranean Sea. Over the years, scientists have proven that seagrass meadows have a strong carbon absorption capacity, and according to this marine ecologist in Tunis, Posidonia could also produce up to 20 liters of oxygen per square meter.
Rim Zakama Sraibe, a researcher at the University of Tunis, explained that forests store carbon on land, and this is called green carbon. Rim added that these ecosystems, and especially Posidonia, capture large quantities of carbon over thousands of years. The North African country is popular for its beaches, one of the great assets of tourism. However, over 40% of these dream spots are at risk, since the seagrass species also helps to break the waves and prevent from erosion. The fishing industry, which represents 13% of the country's GDP, is also at risk as these underwater forests provide shelter for marine species. Mazen Madiche goes out fishing near Montassil in the central coast of Tunisia, and over the years he has seen the sea change. A study conducted 12 years ago in the Gulf of Gebs on Tunisia's east coast found the massive degradation and disappearance of the seagrass bed was essentially due to illegal fishing and pollution.
Let's once again take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News at the right to know. In our business news today, the Meadows Nafrogos, also known as the Shipwreck Museum on the island of Boa Vista in Cape Verde, has reopened 2 years after the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, the history of humanity is told from the period of the discoveries, slavery, isolation, survival, historic drought, and Creole culture.
The Castaway Museum in Salray, which opened in 2019, is the result of the work of 2 decades by Maurizio Rossi. For this Italian archaeologist, the condition of castaway is not a thing of the past, it is a condition that anyone can still experience. Shipwrecked is a condition in which every man lives throughout his life. It is a person who is lost in the sea of life without finding an island that can save his soul and his existence. This is a 3-story museum that starts in the darkest part of history of the soul piracy, which was a big problem on the island, and slavery. The Meadows was built with materials found on the island, and the permanent exhibition displays the anthropological culture of the Cape Verde archipelago. Hundreds of objects are exhibited, such as finds from the wreck of historical ships off Boa Vista, pieces from the period of the pirate attacks to the island, or from the sending of slaves to the Americas, and also from the Cape Verdean art and its evolution during the encounters of cultures.
In our health news today, Africa's first COVID-19 vaccination plant risks shutting down after receiving not a single order, a company executive said on Saturday. We have more.
This announcement comes at a time when a large portion of Africa's population remains unvaccinated, and also at a time when South Africa has entered into a 5th wave of the pandemic. According to the World Health Organization, as of March this year, only a 1/6 of adults in Africa had been fully vaccinated. The pharmaceutical company Aspen Pharmacare got a licensing deal in November last year to package and sell Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine and distribute it across Africa. Professor Tulio de Oliveira, the director of the Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation in South Africa, told the media that the closure could affect the production of other vaccines that do not affect the developed world, as well as the preparation for the next pandemic. It is the aim of the African Union that 60% of all vaccines would be produced in Africa. However, with the latest development, Africa is at risk of missing this target.
And in sports, Crested Cranes head coach George Lutalo has summoned a provisional squad to begin preparations for the upcoming Africa Women's Cup of Nations. Lutalo named a provisional squad of 47 players on Wednesday in a press briefing at Fufa House. The squad summoned is a blend of players featuring in the domestic league, FUFA Women's Super League, and foreign-based players. The foreign-based legion includes Selena Alibahi, who earns her first call. The defender recently featured for GAA Gent in Belgium. The others include Rita Chivumbi, Viola Nambi, Natasha Shiraz, and Tracy Jones Akirol, among others. Coach Lutalo indicated that the technical team has been following up on the players summoned and believes it is a good squad to perform and achieve the set targets. It should be noted that the team will first play at the CECAFA Senior Women's Championship slated for 22nd May to 5th June 2022. The coach believes having the team play at CECAFA Women's Championship will be a good opportunity to prepare well for Total Energies Women Africa Cup of Nations. The team will enter residential camp on Saturday 7th May 2022. It should be noted that Uganda will host this year's CECAFA Women's Championship. The Total Energies Africa Women Cup of Nations will be staged in Morocco between 2nd to 23rd July, and Uganda is pooled in Group A alongside hosts Morocco, Senegal and Burkina Faso. That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned. More programming coming your way.